Well, I call my story Rescued by an Ecuadorian Passport. I was born in Berlin in 1930, and when Hitler came to power some years later and the persecution of the Jews began, my family decided to leave Germany and immigrated to the Netherlands to escape persecution. And we had about 2.5 years in Amsterdam, where my father worked for the American Express Company, which were peaceful and comfortable. And then the Nazis invaded Holland, and within a few days, Holland became an occupied country. The Nazis took over, and they were in full control, and the persecution of Jews continued and escalated. My father one day met a friend on the street in Amsterdam, and he had just gotten passports from a man in Sweden, and he gave my father the information. He wrote immediately, sent the required facts and passport pictures, and hoped. We were hoping. But the passports didn't arrive very quickly, and we were deported to Camp Westerbork, which was a German concentration camp on Dutch soil. And Westerbork was a transit camp, which meant that every week a cattle car train, a very long train, came to Westerbork. You couldn't miss it. It stood there for 3 days, and then the third night, the barrack leaders read a list of names of people to go on the train. The number of Jews who had to be deported was determined in Berlin, and the administration of the camp had to decide who was to go. People with South American passports were not on any list to be deported to Auschwitz or other Eastern European camps. So one day, after we'd been there already for about 5 months, the passports arrived. And that was a miracle because, first of all, the passports were sent to our home address in Amsterdam, and we never got any mail forwarded from our home to the camp. But here they were. And this meant that we were, from here on, we were exempted from being put on the train to Auschwitz. A few months later, we were sent to a German concentration camp called Bergen-Belsen. It was described to us as a privileged camp, but it didn't take long after arrival that we knew what was going on there, and it was horrible. Now, there were 7 camps, I think, in Bergen-Belsen, and our camp was called the exchange camp, Austausch camp, because we were called Austauschjuden. We were the exchange Jews. Some people described it as held hostage by the Germans, so they could exchange Jews for German civilians who were trapped in Allied countries when the war began, and the Germans wanted to get them back into Germany. Well, we were it was almost 1 year in Bergen-Belsen when they announced that people with South American passports had to report to a doctor for screening, and we would go on an exchange transport. Well, of course, you never knew what happened because they never really clarified anything. But when we got to the train a few days later, was a Red Cross train, which made us think that maybe we were going to be liberated. And we did. After 5 days, the train arrived in Switzerland. My father, unfortunately, sadly, died second night on the train, but my mother, my brother, and I arrived in Switzerland. And without the passports, would I be here today?